Assalamu alaikum bachcho. Today I'm going to talk to you about dialogue and narration. Both of these are very important as far as writing a story or even reading a story is concerned. Both of these are ways of telling a story, and most stories have both of them. So let's first discuss what is narration. You probably have heard of the word narrator, and sometimes you narrate during your class assemblies as well. So narrator is the person who describes the story, and narration is the act, it's the verb when someone tells a story from their perspective or point of view. Now pay attention to the words point of view or perspective. It is when someone is telling you a story or when someone is speaking from their own experience. If you tell me what happened in the class yesterday, you are probably going to say the teacher came and she told us about narration and dialogue. So that is going to be your point of view. But if I am going to tell about things and I am going to say what happened, I will probably say that I went into the classroom and the children studied narration and dialogue with me. So you can see different people can tell the story differently. Now there are three types of narration: first person, second person, and third person. Once again, I'm repeating myself. There are three types of narration. So there are three types of ways that the writer chooses to tell the story. It could be first person, it could be second person, or it could be third person. Let's first talk about first person. Now, this one is very easy. So whenever a character inside the story tells you what is happening to them, then we call it first person narration. For example, I have written a paragraph for you. I did not know what to do when I suddenly fell into the forest. One moment I was joking around with my friends, and the next I was lost. So you can see someone is telling a story about themselves, something that happened to them, and they are directly telling you that this is what happened to them. And in this type of narration, you usually see the word I a lot because someone is telling it from their own point of view. Remember when I said what happened to me when I entered the classroom, I was telling it from my own point of view. That is called first person narration. Now let's look at second person narration. So this is a little bit tricky, so you need to pay attention. Most people get confused over. In second person narration, the writer speaks to you and he tells you what is happening to you in the story. He is telling you what is happening to you inside the story or inside the world that he has created. For example, you had no idea where you were when you fell into the forest. One moment you were joking around with your friends, and the next you were completely lost. So you can see that in this type of narration, the one word that keeps getting used is you, because the writer is telling what you are seeing, what you are doing, and what you are feeling. Now let's talk about third person narration. When the story is told by someone outside the story. So none of the characters are speaking and no one is telling you what has happened to you. In third person narration, the narrator speaks as if he or she can see exactly what is happening to the characters. So we do not know who this narrator is or where he is or where he is sitting and watching these people, but he knows exactly what is happening to the characters and he can jump from one character to another or one setting to another. Now I have written a small example for you. Bahar had no idea where she was when she suddenly fell into the forest. One moment she was joking around with her friends, and the next she was lost. So now you can see that the narrator knows what is happening to Bahar, how she is feeling, and where she is. We don't know where the narrator is sitting. In this type of narration, you see the words he, she, or it a lot because the narrator talks about other characters and what is happening to them. Now, let's come to dialogue. This is something that you shouldn't be confused at all. You have all seen dialogue in your stories and you all have been reading a lot of stories, right? In Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Grandpa Joe tells Charlie about Mr. Willy Wonka and his factory, right? It is all in form of dialogue. So To specify dialogue, we place inverted commas around it. Most of the times in the story, the dialogues are written in present tense. Look over here. I know the real identity of Spud Murphy, exclaimed Will. She is a dangerous woman. Oh, stop being silly, his mother laughed. This is the most absurd thing that I have ever heard. Now you can see that the words that they are speaking are in present tense. I know, not I knew. The writer has chosen to use present tense, and most of the times this is how dialogues are written. But if you see at this tag, exclaimed Will, you will find out that the story is in past tense. And in the same way, the second dialogue is also written. His mother laughed. Laughed is in past tense. Now, another thing that can happen with dialogue that the writer tells you what the characters are feeling or what their actions were. You can find these details by looking at these tags, these small verbs in past tense that are attached to the dialogues. So you can say that not only does the dialogue help move the story forward, it is also a very good way of telling what the characters are feeling. For example, now I have changed just 2 words in this entire dialogue, and you can see the entire feeling or the entire mood of the story has changed. I know the real identity of Spud Murphy, sobbed Will. She is a dangerous woman. Oh, stop being silly, his mother shouted. This is the most absurd thing that I have ever heard. So you can see that just by changing one word in a sentence, you can change the entire mood of the story. First, it felt like Will was being over dramatic and his mother was taking it all as a joke and she laughed about it. But in the second example, you can see that Will is in distress. He is crying and his mother is angry because she shouted. So you can see that just by changing one word in the entire dialogue, you can change the mood of the entire story. Now, just for revision, dialogue is usually in present tense unless the character is talking about the past. Okay, so I hope you understand this, because most of the times when characters are speaking to each other, they use present tense. But if the characters are telling something that already happened or something that they are going to do, then the tense can change. For example, I am doing everything I can, Martha claimed. So right now she is talking in present tense and she's telling you what she is doing right now. Now in the second sentence, I have done everything I could, she shouted. So you can see that in this sentence she is talking about something that she has already done, which is why this dialogue has been written in past tense. I will do everything I can. Now she is claiming to do something in the future. You can see that every rule is not hard and fast. You can play around with the rules, but you have to be very, very careful about the tenses. Thank you so much for listening. Take care and Allah Hafiz.